Hello, this is Deacon Chris, and I wanted to share a poem called The Pilot Whale. Riding my bike to school, I see a whale. It surfaces quietly, sleek and black in the oily water, broad back glistening. I am standing on a metal gangplank. In the distance, the spires of the city. I am waiting for the lock to fill and the boat to rise before I continue on my way to my seminars, in my books, and all I am trying to do. But now something sleek and black has broken the surface. A pilot whale, caught, big as a pickup, curving and diving, until the lock finally lowers and it can swim away, back out to sea. I went to graduate school at the University of Washington. That's where I got my PhD a long time ago now in English. And we lived for a while in West Seattle in Magnolia. And I used to ride my bike from West Seattle to the University of Washington, to the University District. And I crossed over at one point at the Ballard Locks. Maybe some of you have been there. And they're locks that, help boats from Puget Sound, come, or I guess boats from outside of Seattle, come to think of it, get into Puget Sound, to rise up and get there. There's a metal gangplank there. And I walked my bike across the gangplank, and I looked down, and I saw this pilot whale, and I stopped to watch it. And then I went on my way. Over the years, this image stayed in my mind, and I kept thinking about it. And finally, I wrote this poem about it. I've been coming back to it recently, to the poem. And I think I've said this before, and it's underneath the class I'm teaching in the parish on Augustine's Confessions, that we find God in our memory, among other places, or God finds us in our memory. And that when a memory comes to mind, when we start to remember something and it stays with us, it's possible that God is asking us to reflect on that again. That just as he was present in that moment, he is present in our remembering of the moment now. And that he wants us to enter into it, and he's calling us to something through it. Part of this for me is remembering the ambivalence I felt about graduate school. How much I loved it, but also how there were parts of it I resisted. And my whole career as a teacher, I felt that ambivalence, how much I loved literature and writing, and was so grateful to the way I was trained and given the credentials to be able to teach, and all the good colleagues I had. And yet there was something, a number of things about higher education that concerned me, that seemed to question and undermine my faith and my sense of joy in life and my confidence in the world around me, and that tended to flatten experience to things that were just merely material or rational. And here I'm stopped. Something stops me. And some of you might recognize, although it wasn't conscious when I was writing this, an echo of Wordsworth's Composed Upon Westminster Bridge, 1804, whenever it was. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. And so I didn't pass it by, although I hurried on, because I was hurrying on to other things as a young man would. But here's this pilot whale, and it's trapped, and maybe I'm identifying with the pilot whale, and maybe we all identify with that pilot whale. What's trapping us? And we need to get back out to sea, which in a sense is what I think faith is always asking us to do, is to come back into the sea of baptism, the waters of the Red Sea, the waters of the River Jordan, the rivers of faith, the ocean of faith, where we have less control and there's vastness and there's beauty and we're not narrowed in. There's freedom. And I think that's the sure sign of the presence of God, is a sense of freedom, true freedom, to be ourselves and to go where we are really called. And so I just invite you to think about moments in your own life, your own experience. Maybe something has come to mind as you've heard me read this poem and talk about it. What is God inviting you to think about? And I think always he's inviting us to freedom and to thinking about what blocks our freedom, what keeps us from that ocean